Welcome back to another great episode where it is my honor to introduce our next guest. Again, my name is Angel Tuccy from Need a Guest, and today we have Dominiece Clifton. Dominiece, how are you doing?
Angel, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm
I am
excited to
so excited to be interviewing you today. Our topic, right, for all of our listeners, and you think about really like taking next steps and having that consistent strategy. Dominique is going to share with us an inside out approach to success using the 4% formula for consistency. I love it when there's like numbers and data behind. Like it's not just feel good, but we actually have some numbers and some data that we can put behind it. But Dominique, before we get all into that, why don't you just give us a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to be sitting in this spot with me today.
Sure. So I'm Dominiece Clifton, and I am a purpose coach and a business strategist, and I'm really passionate about helping women to launch businesses that are sustainable. And a part of that sustainability is really learning how to take care of ourselves as we manage so many things. And so what I do is, as a coach, I get to guide women in turning their purpose and their passions, into profitable businesses that really allow them to create a plan to walk away from unfulfilling 9 to 5 jobs.
Mm.
And how I got here, I was myself someone who worked for many, many years in unfulfilling 9 to 5 roles. And I always felt like there was more for me. Like I just always had this knowingness that there was more for my life. At the time, I had no idea what that was. And then I walked away from my job at the end of 2019, just a few months before COVID, planning to take a slightly longer maternity leave. And then COVID happened and people were getting laid off. And so I always say that I kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship. It wasn't like the plan that I had for myself, but just going through my own healing journey, investing in coaches and mentors, and learning so much about launching business, I decided after about 5 years of really learning and just, soaking up information that it's now time to take everything that I've learned for myself and put into my own business and help other women who want to get started.
I love that. I love that. I think a couple of things in there. Like, I think we've all felt like we've been in a role, been in a position that wasn't quite fulfilling. Me personally, I've had that. And how do you get out of that? How do you break free from that? But then having the pandemic on top of that kind of fast track the whole
Yeah.
plan, right? You were already thinking of going down that path and making a plan for it, but it kind of ended up in your lap. And I think that's often the way that sometimes the universe just works like that. Like if you won't jump through this path, through this door, I'm going to open it for you. But you during this time, you actually came up with this 4% formula. And I'm really curious because I've never heard of that before. I'm pretty sure my audience doesn't know. So describe what that 4% formula is, and then we can dig in a little deeper on how we can implement that for ourselves.
Sure. So, just to give a bit of context about where my life was at that point, I had my second daughter in September of 2019. And after working again at a job for many years that wasn't fulfilling and having to constantly advocate for better benefits and better pay and maternity leave and all the things, I just felt so undervalued. And so, I
Mm.
felt like after being there for a few years, I was like, I can figure out, another plan. I'll take 6 months off and, I'll go back to work. And then, of course, COVID happened. And so, at the time that this 4% formula came to me that I'll share in a second, I was unemployed, right? And I didn't have a plan because here comes COVID. I was going through a lot in my marriage. We have now since separated, but there was a lot going on there. I had a toddler, a 3-year old, and a newborn, and I had just actually stepped away from a natural hair salon that I just opened a few months prior, and then COVID happened, and so everything that wasn't essential was shut down, and so I was, broke. I didn't have, any sort of plan. I was just going through a lot. And then that was all going on inside of my household. And then externally, COVID was happening. And we all know that just the way that the world was then. So I was feeling very lost, very overwhelmed, very confused, and just like I could not figure out how to get out of this hole that I found myself in. And so I am someone who, for the last few years, has been very spiritual. I didn't know anything else to do at that time but just to be still and meditate. And so one day, Angel, I was meditating and I got this download that said, every day for the next 90 days, focus on your mind, your body, and your spirit. And so I came out of that meditation, wrote it all down, like everything that was coming to me. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to jump into this. I'm always someone who like just jumps right in and does things. I don't really think about it too much. Now, prior to that, I was a very inconsistent person. I say that I was the queen of inconsistency. I would start something and stop it. And whether it was like my health goals or any sort of New Year's resolution, I just couldn't stick to anything. And so that was true when I started this 90-day challenge. The first 2 or 3 weeks, I was having a really hard time with hitting that daily mind, body, spirit approach. But I kept going and I didn't give up. And somewhere around the 3 week mark, around the 3 to 4 week mark, I started to notice a difference. I started to feel better. I started to have like mental clarity after feeling super overwhelmed, and I kept doing it. And then fast forward to the end of that 90-day period, and I always tell people that I felt like I was alive for the first time. I didn't realize how much I had been sleepwalking through my life, just stuck on autopilot and not feeling fulfilled in so many parts of my life. And then after this constant daily practice of really pouring into my mind, body, and spirit, it was like I came out of a fog and I was just kind of looking around at my life and like where I was and all the things that I'd just been okay with previously that I now wanted to change. And that was really the introduction to me jumping into entrepreneurship. I felt so good that I wanted other people to feel like this. I wanted to scream from the mountaintops that everyone should be doing this. And so the 4% formula is really a daily practice of nourishing yourself. And when you think about where the 4% comes from, I've been doing this practice now for almost 5 years. And so when I was feeling guided to now begin to share this method with the world, I was like, well, how can I give this in a way that is easy for people to understand and something that feels feasible for them? And I was thinking, okay, so I do 15 minutes every day of daily mindset work. I do 15 minutes every day of something where I can cultivate my practice with my spirit. And so just spending time with myself. And then 30 minutes of daily movement. When I added that up, it comes to 1 hour. And so then I asked myself, well, how much is 1 hour out of a 24-hour day? And it's 4%. And I was like, that's it. Surely, right? Like I can convince people to just give themselves 4% of a 24-hour day. And that was the birth of the 4% formula.
Oh, wow. You totally had me in that whole journey, right? As you like went through and the light and the fog lifted, just wanting to shout from the mountaintops. Like I was totally engrossed in the story. And then that 1 hour is 4%. And because even as you were adding it up, I'm like, well, how much is that? How much is
Mhm,
that? That's 4%. So
mhm.
so it's 15 minutes of being mindful,
Yep.
15 minutes of
Spirit, doing
spirit,
work.
and then
Yep.
30 minutes of movement.
Yep.
Walk me through like what does that look like for you, Dominiece?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
15 minutes and the 15 and the 30.
I love that. So, and I love this question because I always want to like break it down so it's tangible for people. 15 minutes of mindset work is really anything that is inspirational or instructional content. And so, what that looks like is listening to podcasts such as this, like anything that's going to motivate you and inspire you to work towards your goals. It can be any podcast, YouTube videos, like, any inspirational and motivational videos or, audible books, reading. So, anything that's feeding your mind when you think about mindset work. And
Okay.
another part of that that was really important and something that I started during the pandemic was also being mindful about the content that I was consuming. And so
Mm.
instead of just mindlessly scrolling social media, not necessarily timing it for 15 minutes, but also just being mindful about what I was consuming, the type of conversations that I was engaging with. So I did that for 15 minutes every day, inspirational, instructional content. 15 minutes of a spiritual practice is really just taking time to slow down and connect with yourself. We are all moving so busy and our lives are so full, and we also oftentimes place a great emphasis on our external relationships, so our partners, our business partners, our children, our colleagues. But
Mhm.
how often do we slow down to think about the relationship with ourselves and how we're doing, right? Like assessing how much time we're spending with ourselves. When was the last time we really focused on cultivating that relationship? And that spiritual practice is really all about cultivating that relationship with self. What I've found is that when I make time consistently to sit with myself, whether that's meditating, journaling, going for a walk in nature, I became so much clearer about my purpose and who I am. And I just had a greater sense of, again, like who I am as a being. And that really help me to make a lot of pivots and shifts in my life so that I could become more aligned to who I'm intended to be. And then that last piece is the physical movement. That's 30 minutes. And that's any sort of physical movement that feels good to you. And so, for anyone who's listening who doesn't like working out, you don't have to go to the gym. You can go for a walk, do Zumba, go swimming, go for a jog, like anything that feels good to you. Sometimes for me, that looks like dancing with my two children, my two daughters in our living room and just putting on some music and moving my body. But the benefit in that, Angel, is that when we move our bodies, physical movement is the number one way to release stress and trauma from our bodies. And so we help our bodies to release stress when we're doing this consistent movement practice, which over time helps us to have a greater capacity for the things that we're dealing with in our lives because we aren't getting stressed and overwhelmed and burned out because we're working on releasing that stress every single day.
You know, Dominique, I think when people start thinking about what do I need to do to be successful, they're looking at, a checklist of what are the tools, what's the technology, how many sales calls do I need to make? Like they're talking about, really tangible business
Yeah.
activities. When you talk about spending 15 minutes a day, and my husband and I have done this for years, where we're whatever you're reading or listening to every day, no doubt that that has an impact on how you're thinking, the quality of your language, your quality of your thoughts, all of that. And so doing this for when I know, like, when people come in are like, I want the success tip, I want to know, right? Like, for us, how many podcasts do I need to get booked on? But if you just take this 1 hour for yourself, and especially as moms,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, those poor mamas, right? I mean, we're just running ragged nonstop, the emotional dependency and physical dependency upon us. So I am loving that you're talking about this. I think this is so important, and it truly is the foundation. I think a lot of times business owners are struggle because they're just running around on the hamster wheel, and they're running themselves ragged, and they're stressed out, and they don't have any of this time to just really be mindful, and or to even just get into their body. So I just think you're brilliant, and I think you've tapped into something real, just life altering, because it really doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, if you work at home, you still, like, whatever you do, this is a true fundamental. From
Thank
here
you.
though, right, what would you, when you think about the clients, like, tell us about your ideal client and type of clients you help.
Thank you. So, yes, so my ideal client, I work with women. I am really passionate about working with women. Oftentimes, they are moms. I'm a mom myself. And so I totally understand what it's like to balance all the things. I will say that this formula that we've talked about, I'm a business coach, but because I am a mom, because I'm wearing many hats, I am managing two businesses and a coaching program, like all the things. I understand what it's like to feel like stretched very thin and burned out. And that
Mm.
used to be my story. Like I was someone who was just constantly burned out. And so I'm super passionate about working with women who are balancing many roles. You most likely they're working a 9 to 5 right now, and they're feeling again like there's more. They want to launch a business. They're probably not even sure what type of business they want to launch. Again, sometimes we don't have that level of clarity just yet. But the beautiful thing about it is that with working with women, I am able to take them from that place of not knowing, and we go through utilizing implementing this 4% formula into their lives. They're able to really get the clarity that they need. We're able to go to a self-discovery journey so that they're able to learn about themselves, learn about their gifts, their skills, their talents, and how they can take those things that they are really passionate about and then convert that into something that brings in paid clients and generates additional income. And so right now my ideal client is, again, most likely working a 9 to 5 job and looking for a way out. And I, as a mom and someone who has many responsibilities, I've done the huge, like, quit the job without a plan. And I don't advocate for that, which is a part of why I started this business, because it's like when you are in a space in your life where you're feeling like you want to pivot, right? And especially if you're pivoting away from a career, a corporate career, a more traditional career into entrepreneurship, there's a lot that has to go into that. Like you need to, plan, have a plan in place, probably save some money. And so that's what this program is really all about. It's about the A to Z of launching a business, but it's really about helping you to create a plan that empowers you to step into your goals and your dreams fully, but from a place where you feel safe and secure in doing so because you didn't have to just make an irrational decision and up and quit your job.
Dominique, how long do your clients typically work with you?
Yep. So it's a 12-week or 90-day coaching program. And so the program is really focused on, again, launching the business, like everything that you need, all of the things that you need to know to launch a business. And so we're looking at one, again, helping you to get clear on who you are as a being, because I think who we are, right, should be reflected in our work. I love human design and astrology and all of these sort of self discovery tools. And I think that they are great tools to help us to really understand ourselves better. And then we can take the things that light us up and make us excited and pour those things into our business, right? I call that our zone of bliss. Some people call it your zone of genius.
Mm.
And so that's really what this program is about. So in 12 weeks, you go from understanding yourself. I also say, your client, I also say you get clarity on your you, who, and how. So who you are, who your ideal client is, and then how you're going to serve them. So what your signature offer is going to be. And so by the end of the 90 days, you have that. We put a plan in place. So we set goals for the next 90 days. You have clarity on exactly what goals and steps you need to take to begin to bring in those new clients.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. You, who, and how. Right? I mean, you can just tell like this has been very thoughtful, very mindful how it's all put together. And 12 weeks is plenty of time. I mean, you can totally change the trajectory of your entire life in 90 days, taking your going, creating your zone of bliss.
Yes.
Dominiece, what's been your favorite thing, or do you have like a favorite like story that just coming out of now you sharing this with others and helping women break out of that corporate burnout or corporate 9 to 5? Like, it's been like one of your favorite success stories, or even for you, what's motivating you to continue?
So I'll answer that in two ways. What motivates me to continue is being extremely clear on who I am and my purpose. I was someone, had you asked me maybe 3 or 5 years ago, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I would always get really frustrated and intimidated by those questions because I didn't have a clue. And like that inner knowing of not having that answer made me really frustrated and overwhelmed. But because I've done this consistent practice of getting to know myself and going through a process of self discovery with that 4% formula, I'm so clear now on who I am and how I am intended to serve. And so, what really keeps me going is knowing that I'm doing exactly what I'm intended to do. I know my gifts, I know my skills. I've taken the best parts of myself and really poured them into a business. And I get to coach and help other women to discover the best parts of themselves so that they can generate income for themselves and their families and really focus on creating a legacy for themselves off of that. And when you talk about success stories, I think sometimes we hear like really big stories, and I like to share those small wins. So, right now, I'm working with a client, and she isn't, I would say, my traditional client, but it works really well because she's been in business for 7 years, but she started her business and she didn't do any of those business basics or more like foundational things that we should do at the start of a business. And so we've had to go back and really get clear on who her ideal client is and who her target audience is, and like what distinguishes you as a photographer from all the other photographers in the industry. So getting clear on her unique value proposition. So we've gone back 7 years later and we're really focusing on rebuilding the foundation and building more stable foundation in her business. And what she was running to, although she'd been in business for 7 years, she was overwhelmed. She wasn't sure what she was supposed to be doing. So she's showing up every day and it's like not being clear on what action she needs to take. And what I found was by helping her get extremely clear on her messaging, it like revitalized her. So now she knows who she's talking to. Now she can speak directly to that ideal client, put out messaging that's very intentional and that supports and serves them at a high level. And it has been one amazing to see the fire within her be lit again after just completely losing that and not being excited
Mm.
about showing up in her business. We've also been able to create some new signature products or services, I should say, for her. And so she was kind of doing the same thing, kind of stuck in a rut. And based on, again, her gifts, her skills, the things that light her up, we were able to identify some new packages that she should offer and, charge more for these things. And it's things that she loves to do. And so we were able to do that. And what we've seen from that is that now she's beginning to bring in more clients, and not just more clients, but like really those aligned ideal clients, like the clients that she's excited to serve every day. And so her business is growing. Her and her partner, her husband, are in business together. And we're now seeing that their business is starting to increase. And so one of the greatest things that I think we have to have as business owners is really clarity about our marketing strategy and who we're supporting so that we can talk to those people directly.
Dominique, you're speaking my language when you talk about the small wins. I think
Mhm.
as entrepreneurs, like, we expect these like monumental success stories, but it's really the true success are in those small wins, those consistent wins that happen over and over again. But you being able to see her light up, I'm sure is just gotta be a joy. Okay, so we've got an incredible 12-week coaching program that they can learn about with you, Dominiece. But I know there's going to be people who just want to follow up, want to connect, want to get in your world, kind of play in your sandbox. What do you say is the first step for them?
Yeah. So I would say over my last couple of years of as an entrepreneur, I have failed a lot, which has been, it wasn't easy going through those things, but it's been really helpful for me as a business coach because I have learned so much from those experiences. And one of the things that I've learned is that like you need to have operating capital, like you need to have cash on hand for all the business expenses. And it's really helpful for investing in yourself when you need to hire a coach or make investments. And so I'm all about building a dream business that you love, but my past is also in grant writing and fundraising, and so I've been able to take those parts of myself and incorporate them into my business, and now I'm teaching other women how to do that as a part of the business. So we didn't even talk about that. A part of the 12-week program is also teaching women how to generate funding for their business. In the last 3 years, I've raised about $120,000 for my business, and I've been able to use that for marketing and hiring coaches and all of these wonderful things, hiring help so that I don't have to do everything myself. And so I've created a free resource that helps women, small business owners who want to generate some additional income. It's a grant writing resource, and so it teaches you how to write winning compelling grants. And the best part about it is that you get access to over 300 funding options by state with direct links to apply for these grants. And so if anyone is interested in securing some additional funding for their business to grow their dream business, you can go to fundyourdreambiz.com and snag that free resource to begin generating some additional revenue while you're building your business.
Holy moly. Fund your dream biz, right? You were talking about grant money and we've gotten a few grants over the years, and it is fun. Most beautiful thing about grant money is you don't have to pay it
It's
back.
free.
Right. But what an incredible resource, and how absolutely generous of you, Dominiece. Fundyourdreambiz.com. Get your business funded, right? What a concept. What a beautiful concept. And I love that that's part of it, because coming up with ideas is great, but being able to actually help them create the funding for it. Dominique, this is really an incredible program, and I'm super excited to help you get the message out and get the word out and share it with our audience. Any closing remarks or last things you'd want to share today?
The biggest thing for anyone who's listening who's curious about this 4% formula that we talked about, one of the questions that I get asked often is, well, what if someone feels like they don't have an hour to start? And one thing that I didn't share is that this doesn't have to be done consecutively. So you don't have to group all of these things together and do them in 1 hour. It can be 15 minutes on a car ride that you're listening to a podcast, or 30 minutes on your lunch break that you're walking around. I would say, though, that it's just so important for us as entrepreneurs to find time to prioritize ourselves, because when we don't, that's when we end up burned out and overwhelmed and just feeling like we're in a frenzy on a hamster wheel. And so, regardless of if you start with all of these things or you just pull out one of the three and start with saying, I'm going to be better with my mindset or physical movement, we really, if we're trying to build sustainable businesses, we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And so, that's the biggest message that I want to leave everyone with today, is that in order to build a business, you have to make sure that you're sustaining yourself consistently. And that's really the message that I wanted to share with your audience and just everyone listening today.
Yeah, there is time, right? You can either find a way or find an excuse, but I love the freedom, the permission, like separate it out, do it in your time, do it throughout your day, but make yourself a priority. Make sure you guys follow Dominiece, fundyourdreambiz.com, fundyourdreambiz.com. Get access to those financial resources for your business, and then follow up with Dominiece. And if you've got a dream, a passion, maybe feeling a little burnt out and just not really sure, can I turn my passion into a business? I bet you could have a really great conversation with Dominiece. Dominiece, thanks so much for being my guest today.
Angel, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always love hanging out with you. Thanks so much for listening. We are going to love you and leave you. If you are looking for more great guests, more great podcasts, make sure you follow us at needaguest.com. And until next time, I'm Angel Tuccy, super excited to bring these fabulous guests to you. Cheers.